Thursday. Happy Thursday, everyone. It is 8 a.m. on Thursday, March 13th. I always have to look. March 13th. And we are moving through the week. It's a bit of a bumpy one in terms of the markets, in terms of business. Some more stories today that aren't encouraging, but you are up and you are getting out those job applications. You are doing what you need to do, things you can control to make progress. And here we go. My name is Keith. I created this stream as a place to hang out while you're getting out job applications. If you're looking for a job in tech, if you are laid off recently, if you are out of school and you are looking for the first job in industry, and you've been having a hard time of it, completely understandable because the market's been very rough. This is a place to kind of hang out, be a consistent place to check in the morning, get a little news, get your day started, get a little caffeinated beverage in you. Although I'm all out of caffeine this morning, I'm going to have to go with some Gatorade, which will quench my thirst. It'll quench my thirst. There's that. This week is also the wrapping up of South by Southwest here in Austin, Texas, where I am broadcasting from. I have been partaking in a lot of South by Southwest recently, but we're winding it down. South by South Interactive finished off yesterday. There's still some music going on. I created an app this year to help you find cool free things to do around town. If you're still a music fan, even if you're working in tech, but you might be a music fan. You know, there's an interesting thing. I talked to a bunch of people in tech at different events, and one of the most common things that I hear is a lot of developers are also programmers. We're also musicians. A lot of programmers were also musicians, and super common. Something about them learning how to look at all those cryptic symbols and figure how to convert that into something useful. Those codes on the music sheet makes them good at figuring out how to program a computer. And it was not uncommon in the 90s in our small tech community for all the little companies and startups to have their own house band. Just enough of those musicians together that when you would go to an open house or something, there'd be a band playing, and it was like all the company employees who just kind of on the side would jam together. So if you're like that, if you're a tech person, you also like music, there are a number of music events going on still around town today, tomorrow, and Saturday. So if you want to check that out, you can go to sxfreesw.com, southbyfreesouthwest.com, sxfreesw.com, and check it out. It is not affiliated with South by Southwest, nor are, I don't think, any of these events left. There were a couple of free South by Southwest events which I was highlighting, but one to highlight, one of my students is got an event today at 5 p.m. Unfortunately, I'll be working tonight and I won't be able to make it, but check that out. Go see what he's got going on. It is actually a tech event. He's got an app that you might be interested in. Go check that out. Okay. Because of the South by Southwest thing, I've been doing 30-minute streams instead of hour. Typically, I go from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. every morning, and I've been doing that since the first of the year. So couple of months, 2.5 months almost, consistently streaming Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. But I gotta say, I'm kind of liking these shorter streams. I might keep that going next week. We'll see. They're shorter, punchier. In the hour, it feels like I'm padding out a little bit towards the end. And the goal really is to kind of get you up, get a check in, learn a little bit about what's going on in the world, and then wrap it up. So I think we might stick with this 30 minutes. I like it. Okay, so on the stream, we do two things primarily. We check out what's going on in the job trends, and we look at news in our industry. I get up every morning, and I search Indeed, and I dutifully write down all the job numbers for web developer jobs, JavaScript jobs, and I've been doing this for over 300 days. 900 days, sorry. Almost 3 years. 53 days, I think. And with that, it gives me a perspective of where the trend lines are in the industry for web developers primarily, but I have spot checked other things like Python and that, and what we're seeing is fairly consistent trend lines. Hiring is kind of across the board. There'll be some job titles that might be getting a little bit more juice now than they used to, but where the web goes, where the JavaScript developers go, so goes the industry in a lot of ways. So when we look at the last 7 days, we're going to see a bit of a slump here. It's been a rough 10 days in some ways since the tariffs started to be threatened and backed off and threatened and implied and all that. The stock market has taken a nosedive. These are headwinds that we, again, cannot control, but it's good to be aware of. And so we're seeing a downtrend. Every day we keep thinking, well, somebody's going to come to their senses and back off this stuff and put some more stability in our political system, but that does not seem to be having an end in sight. And as a result, companies don't feel comfortable. We've got a story today about companies backing off IPOs. IPOs are a way that companies raise money. One of the reasons they raise money is to hire more people, to build better products, to build more features, to build more products. And that takes butts and seats to do that. But we are in such a crazy stock market space that no company in their right mind is going to roll out their IPO. The IPO really gets that kick right at the beginning. That's where there's a huge influx in money, and you want to start a huge wave and ride that to a lucrative influx of cash. And again, going into post-election but pre-inauguration, there was a lot of hope that IPOs were coming back. There were very few IPOs last year and the year before, and these liquidity events, as they're referred to, are how VCs get paid. It's how angel investors get paid. It's how companies get a big, huge influx of cash, and as a result, in a market such as this, they're sitting this out. They're sitting it out, and as a result, VCs don't feel as comfortable investing. Companies don't have cash to grow. It's been a rough week. When we look at the last 6 months, we do see a slight uptrend there. It is. There are a few more job postings coming out now than there were 6 months ago, but not much. Not much. It's been so flat since the inauguration. And then the last year, it's been a slight downtrend. Again, you know, there were more job postings this time last year than there are now. But if you would have looked at the numbers pre, um, the month previous to this, you'd see that there would be a trend line from January 1st up, and continue to go up. But this is completely flattened out, unfortunately. Again, doesn't mean that there's no job postings coming out. There are new job postings every day. You should be up there getting at the top of the stack for every one of those jobs you can find every day. But it does mean that there are not as many job postings as there have been even recently in the last few months. And, with these layoffs means there's a more crowded field. It's not impossible. One of our students got a job recently, but it just means you got to hustle. It means you got to hustle. You got to work all your angles. You can't just sit at home, be a keyboard jockey, and put out some easy applications. You definitely want to do that, but you also need to go the extra mile. I'm also on LinkedIn every day, all day. And one of the reasons, because they've got this nice little news feed that aggregates some of the more pertinent news stories. So we're going to hit a few of those right now. Not sure what this... okay. Millions in U.S. juggle several jobs. So I guess they're trying to say that she hasn't cloned herself. She's just simultaneously working multiple jobs. One job for about 8.9 million people in the United States. That's no longer enough. According to February's job data, more people than ever have multiple jobs, dating back to when tracking began in 1994. These findings could signal that employment opportunities are easier to come by, but more likely the reason people are holding multiple jobs is the persistence of inflation. The 8.9 million people that represent 5.4% of the workforce, a share not seen since April 2009. This has been the magic trick of unemployment numbers ever since we've really gone in earnest into this kind of job economy of driving Ubers or Lyft or different delivery jobs, all these kind of easy to kind of sign up for and hustle, deliver packages for Amazon not as an employee but as a contractor. All these little contractor jobs that are often not enough to pay the bills, but they're easy to get and relatively easy to do. They don't need a lot of training. If you got a truck, you got a car, you can pick up one of these jobs of going and grabbing Lime scooters and taking them home and charging them up and dropping them back off. These are not enough to pay their rent on. But if you don't have a whole lot of education, if you don't have a lot of experience, if you're not one to do the hard thing of working and devoting yourself to a career, becoming valuable and an expert, developing expertise in a specific area, if you're just kind of skating by life and working for the weekend, there are lots of these little jobs that you can get that, again, probably by themselves won't pay the rent and keep you in beer money, but if you get a couple of them, that's the thing. Even a lot of fast food jobs, which you should be able to, in most cities afford a basic housing and food. Even a lot of these companies, they don't want to hire full-time employees. They want to have a deep bench of people because of churn. They don't want, if somebody's just bails on them. They want to have a deep bench of people who can fill in. And so they're hiring more people and giving them less hours. Same is true for grocery stores and all these traditional businesses that at one time, if you were a checker in a grocery store, that could be a full-time job. And, when I was growing up, if you were good at that, maybe you wanted to become a manager at a grocery store. There's less and less options there. In part because grocery stores are not as plentiful because of Targets and Walmarts. So it's tough if you don't, again, develop expertise. It's tough if you develop expertise, but it's very tough if you don't become an expert in a certain topic. Intel bets on turnaround in its new CEO. So they've hired a new CEO, Lip Bhutan. The news closes a chaotic chapter in Intel's history and sent shares surging Wednesday. Intel's had a rough run. There aren't many people that build these kind of chips, and they were such a big name for so long. Intel Inside was a slogan that even people outside of the computer industry recognized. But man, just misstep after misstep, and they have struggled. So, it's good that they're trying some new things. Obviously, the old things aren't working, but jury's out on whether that's going to be a benefit or not. Round 2 of U.S. layoffs plans due. Should soon become clear how the U.S. government will carry out a second wave of mass layoffs. I mean, they announced more layoffs at Department of Education yesterday. Federal agencies cost-cutting plans, including the proposal of how to reduce staff by significant numbers, are due to the White House on Thursday. The first round of firings led by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has already resulted in the elimination of more than 100,000 jobs, and left state agencies scrambling to address the surge in joblessness. This is going to be a real issue. These kind of unfunded mandates are going to be challenging these second order effects because, again, you could say we're letting go of a bunch of federal workers, but those federal workers are going to go and apply for state unemployment, and that state unemployment only has so much money. We saw this during the pandemic. They budget. They put a little bit of extra in there in case something happens, like a natural disaster or something like that. But, to drop 100,000 people onto unemployment, they're going to be running through their cash pretty quickly, and then they're going to need some government money. They're going to go to the government. The government's going to bail them out, just like they did with the pandemic. So, are we going to save money between that and the lawsuits and all this stuff? Hard to tell at this point. Inflation slower than expected. The key price gauge on Wednesday rose less than expected as economists tried to parse the impact of tariffs on growth and inflation. Again, most of these tariff actions, we won't see the effects of that for months. So, not sure what they're saying there. U.S. price index rose 2.8%. We talked about this yesterday. The report is one of the last ones before the Federal Reserve meets to set interest rates, and that should be today, I think, Thursday. It's typically on a Thursday. So we'll be talking tomorrow about whether or not they cut the interest rates, which They're probably not going to, but I really wish they would. Employee confidence at record low. Unemployment might be low, but so is employee confidence, according to new data. 45% of employees said they were optimistic about their business's outlook in February, the smallest percentage in the survey in nearly 10-year history. Economic uncertainty and concerns about job security are driving the slump. Glassdoor's lead economist wrote on LinkedIn, the record low is another indicator the labor market could be softening following a resilient start of the year. Yeah, again, business thought this new administration was going to be very business friendly and give them lots of opportunities. And all that's really materialized is chaos. And chaos is not good for the markets. It's not good for forecasting what your business is. And when 100,000 people get out of a job, that's 100,000 less customers, potentially, for your services. Stock market turmoil imperils IPOs. Yeah, as Wall Street prepares to kick off some high-profile initial public offerings, including CoreWeave, Klarna, and Hinge Health, stock market turbulence and the prospect of future volatility are casting uncertainty on their path to listing. Bloomberg reports the stock market's recent decline, along with the growing concerns over recession risks, is contributing to fluctuations. While the IPO listings have increased this year, their performance has been lackluster, with shares declining. I mean, typically what happens is there's a release, they ring the bell, they kick off the IPO on that day. There's a huge surge in people buying that stock. The price goes up, it peaks, and then later in the afternoon or tomorrow there's a sell-off and it starts to settle down after the initial FOMO. In the meantime, the company was selling a lot of shares at that increased FOMO number, and they get a big influx of cash. That's what they hope for. But if there's no heat behind the IPO, or the market is just in the doldrums and doesn't want to take a risk on a company, with the possibility that if we go into recession, all companies are going to go down in their valuations, even the good ones. So they are reticent to go crazy. The FOMO's not as FOMO-y. Quantum computing's new milestone. AI currently dominates Silicon Valley, but tech giants and startups are also racing to advance quantum computing. D-Wave is the latest company to announce a breakthrough, saying it achieved quantum supremacy, the ability to solve the problem that traditional computers can't. D-Wave says it was able to simulate magnetic materials using quantum computer in under 20 minutes, which would take a supercomputer 1,000,000 years to do. I read these kind of overview articles of quantum computers, but I would not pretend to understand this stuff. How many times I've read explaining what a qubit is, and I still couldn't tell you that. Generally what they say is, even if you waved a magic wand and there was a quantum computer tomorrow, it's not like it's going to be on our desktop. It's going to be, the purview of the Defense Department and, medical institutions who are trying to find new drugs and, drug companies. It is not the kind of thing that is useful or practical for the consumer, so I have been less interested in it. But one thing they do say is, as soon as there's a quantum computer, it's going to break all of our two-factor authentication and blockchain and everything. So, you got a lot of money in the blockchain, you should probably be reading those stories a little bit more than I do, because I do not have a lot of money on the blockchain. Volatility breeds consumer caution. Man, all these stories are just negative this week. This is just a rough week to be reading the financial news. Wall Street's sudden and severe $5 trillion pullback is making higher income Americans recoil, Bloomberg reports. I've got a Roth IRA and a 501k that are in the market. That's about the extent of my investment in the market, but it's erased all of my gains this year and zeroing in on the gains I made last year. I still have more money in there than I put in, but if that was just regular investment account, I probably would have sold it off by now. It's a little more difficult to make those changes to the 501k and the Roth IRA. You just got to kind of ride it out and hope that the market will get back to its senses when the administration gets back to its senses. Particularly those who jumped into retail investing during COVID, they were lulled into thinking that markets would keep going up. Their gains influenced their mood, which led to big spending, ultimately powered the economy. Now the tariff-induced volatility making markets slide, as well as a gloomier corporate outlook and a still sticky inflation, these consumers are becoming more cautious and posing a risk to growth. Going. Need me some caffeine. Gotta get me some caffeine. Store run in my future. All right, we're getting down to the end of it. We've got a couple of minutes left. Again, if you joined us late, my name is Keith. I've been a professional developer for over 30 years, and currently I work managing a coding school. I help other people upskill and or get the skills to get their first job in industry. And as a result, I check the job trends every morning. And because a lot of our student base is either, again, changing careers and trying to break into the industry, or they are already upskilled in order to find a new job or get a job once they've been laid off. I created this stream as a place to come and hang out, check in Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Listen to me talk, look at the news, pick up some things. Always open to conversation. So if you're putting stuff in the chat, feel free to add a comment or two. I keep an eye on that. Tell your friends, anybody that you know who is unemployed, who is recently laid off and is looking for a job. This is, again, we just want to get that consistency. We want to hit it every day. Hit it every day. Get up in the morning. Get out those job applications first thing. And then get on to a productive day. So easy for us to just let despair creep in and get lax about what we need to do, those things we can control. No, I'm here to be your accountability buddy. So, again, get up 8 a.m. Central Standard Time, join the stream, add a question or two, complaint, tell me what's going on about your job search, and we'll have a conversation. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. We're going to wrap it up here, and we will see you in 23 hours and 30 minutes. And you guys have a great Thursday, and we'll see you.